Hello and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar Hoke joined here with Tom Jacobs. Tom, a lot of chances last week in China. Thought we'd have a better Sunday for us. Unfortunately, did not go our way with Ashen Wu chalking up another one of his biannual victories that he finds in the DP World Tour. Tom, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Really well, thank you. And as you said, a couple of opportunities, didn't we, on Sunday? Didn't quite come through for us. It's funny you mentioned about the biannual win. I think there was a graphic about him and Haozong winning in the same year every time or something like that, which is a fun wrinkle. But yeah, we had chances. Didn't quite get over the line with Olsen. Afi Barmarat was there. It was disappointing there. But me and you both got our dues in the Corrales instead. So from one of our former DP World Tour stalwarts in Gary Kuko.
Hago's been good to us over the years. We were kind of on him when he was ripping it up. Where was that? What islands did he have that on? It wasn't like the Cayman
Canary
Islands, was
Islands.
it? Canary. That's what it was. Yep. And then I remember hitting him in that Palmetto Championship too. So those were both gifts as, bogey for the leaders in both of those events. So to get that twice in a career and be on both times is quite fortunate. The other two that I had last week that were right up there too, Kaburi inside the
Yep.
top 10 going into the weekend. Katsuragawa was up there. Eduardo Molinari played well too. Like I felt very confident in the way we approached last week, just ultimately didn't shake out. And what ends up happening is, at least this week we have minimal course availability. 15 years ago, right? Or 14 years ago, this course was last played. And I mean, we kind of just went off a prototypical what we thought a China Open would look like last week. And from the looks of it now at this course, based off of a lot of commentary for, I think it was called the World Cup, right? The World Cup in
Yep.
2011 when Kuchar and Woodland won this event. That a lot of commentary and, of course, just the straight course profile of a distance standpoint looks like it's going to be bombs away. Massive fairways this week, 7,800 yards, still in China. So definitely a different take on the prototypical courses we've had here. Any overarching thoughts? Are you going bombs away for your card this week?
Yeah, I think for the most part we'll be sticking stride. There's a couple that I've kind of gone not down that route, but generally speaking, looking at the bigger hitters, the fact there's just no rough, right? It's replaced by this kind of weird terrain they've got out there. So no
Reminds me
rough.
of like the Utah Championship, the,
Yeah,
the Black Desert course they played recently.
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it's a good call, and yeah, I think that just opens up things for these bigger hitters, right? And I think I think the one thing that's really good as well, Sky, is we talked about scheduling issues last week, and actually being able to go back to back in the same country is going to favour a lot of people. We've seen some players that have generally struggled at the start of this season perform well last week, and that's a big kind of hint in towards playing so well in this part of the world. So kind of gone down those lines as well.
Yeah, and still a good amount of the field is brought up from the PGA Tour China or the China Tour that's out there. Now, again, like a lot of the local players from profiles that we have gotten or little glimpses of don't necessarily, again, without really knowing, how good they are off the tee from a standpoint, if we're targeting distance and not having any statistics there, gets a little dicey on being able to really look at. There's one player specifically we'll talk about later that I think actually two, but that are kind of intriguing that showed some life last week too. Now we go to the top of the board. We had the conversation about Rasmus Niergaard Peterson last week, who did play pretty well, right? I think he ended up racking up another top 10 finish. Yep, 10th on the nose. Having a very steady season overall, needs to probably get a win to really threaten getting over to the PGA Tour. But you're making a decision next to him on the leaderboard here to start off your card at 15 or actually 18 to 1 available here in the States.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Chikara, Eugenio Lopez Chikara. We talked about this last week and how I kind of said about there shouldn't be such a big gap between the two, and people were generally basing that on not being able to win back to back, right? And by all accounts, it looked like he could have done. He was second after round one, first after rounds 2 and 3, co-leader after 54 holes, and didn't quite keep going. He
winning into the back nine,
yeah,
right?
and he said that it was his thumb that was kind of playing out, which is why he couldn't go at his very best. As you said, still leading going into the back nine. And look, we've got to at the moment, I'm willing to take him at face value that his thumb potentially was proving difficult, and actually you could have found another gear if that wasn't the case. And yes, there's a bit of a risk that if that was the case, that could recur again here this week. But by all accounts, I mean, we talked about this last week. He looks like a superstar. I don't think that we're getting too far ahead of ourselves here. Like, this is the trajectory that he was on coming out of college. Like, he was, world number 2 amateur at one point. He got onto the Corn Ferry Tour via the PGA Tour U, decided to pass out to go on to Live, won straight away on Live in the first 6 events. Then he goes and wins on the Asian Tour in 2023. Now wins on the DP World Tour. He's never played and won everywhere since turning pro, and I just think he's on his way back to the PGA Tour immediately, or on his way to the PGA Tour for the first time, should I say? But he just seems to have it. He just seems to be extremely good. He's kind of let go of whatever happened to him on Live, very quickly, and just really stamps his authority on this tour. And there's nothing to think that this form won't continue. So, whereas we've got kind of big upbeats, and again, this goes back to the conversation we had last week. I think the sportsbooks want to price up the likes of Peterson shorter because they're expecting it to happen. They want to defend themselves against it happening, as opposed to just taking a little bit of a chance on the guy that is winning already and probably should have won 2 weeks in a row. So, I'm going to go back to the well with Chikara until we have a reason not to.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. People were easy to pile on him playing the blame game, and I think there seems to be I don't want to say attitude, but maybe personality issues people have had with Chikara. I think that's part of the reason why he's no longer with Liv, just didn't really gel with some of those guys. But some of the best golfers in the game also have this chip on their shoulder edginess that people don't want to spend time with them, but they're also a very talented golfer on the course. So without getting into the antics of that, he seems very, very generous price if we have a healthy Chikara at 18 to 1.
What better profession to have than professional golf if you don't like spending time with people? Like, if maybe Liv was the terrible choice looking at that, right? And it turned out to be. But again, still managed to perform even despite having poor relationships over there. One in the first year, as I said, still finishing inside decent finishes throughout his career there, and was playing the Asian Tour and International Series events really well while still on Liv, right? So yeah, look, I can easily believe that he's not very easy to get on with. He strikes as that type. I think a lot of Spanish players are a little bit, abrasive and hard to get on with, right? But that might be a bit of a generalization, but it does seem to be some of our characters are like that. And I just think, look, I'm just playing the play. Like, he's just so good until he's not, which could be this week, right? But this course should suit him. He can drive everywhere and go low.
Yeah, very, very good driver. Probably the best driver of the guys here at the top, at least from a consistency standpoint. It seems that way. Haotong has been great still too, right? I mean, 4th last week. I mean, it's pretty wild, man. I think we're going to get Haotong Li on the PGA Tour next year, which this level of consistency we haven't seen from a long time from him. Excited for that. But we agree on our next selection here, and this is very much, I would say, a course fit play on my end, as I don't have the lengthy list of backing this golfer like you do. But Brandon Stone at 30 to 1 feels very good in this setup here, right? We know him as one of the best drivers on the DP World Tour from a distance standpoint, from just simply leading the field last week at the Volvo China Open off the tee, finishing 6th recently at the Hero Indian Open, 20th Porsche. He has been a prolific player, at least a long-standing player on this side of the world for a lengthy amount of time due to his ability to drive. So I think that partially might be priced in a little bit, but overall, I think he is showing a lot of life at a course last week that I wouldn't have felt was very, very good for him. So to get that leading into this week, I think is strong.
Yeah, look, I backed him last week on the basis of just how good his ball striking had been. We know that the data is, as we said last week, slightly ominous and maybe not 100% accurate. By all accounts, he's got to be hitting the ball well to keep being at the top of the approach and tee to green marks, right? I don't think even if it's slightly wrong, it's going to be that wrong. His putting is just horrible. It's as simple as that. His putting is one of the worst on the DP World Tour, and sometimes you may never escape that, and that might be why his ceiling is 10th. But I'm willing to bet that someone that's won 3 times the DP World Tour had a chance to win a fourth, losing the playoffs to Balamaki. Like, I have every reason to believe that he can just find a good putting week. And yes, the numbers dropped slightly from last week. We've also lost 2 or 3 of the better players in the field. So, more than happy to give him another chance. And to be honest, if it doesn't work this week, then we can probably call off on him for a little while and feel okay about it. But this looks like a good week again.
Yeah, I mean, first off the tee, third and approach, at a course fit that's not the best for you, and then to come into one of your own, I think here just makes so much sense. And it hasn't been a spike; it's been a consistency for Brandon Stone there at 30-1. I'm going on a golfer that I actually thought we'd both go in on. Somebody over at 50-1 this week, a golfer who, I mean, maybe this joke is played out too much, Tom, but he might enjoy listening to a show like ours, that might handicap some golfers in the field, maybe just to get an idea, or maybe when he's not teeing it up, to back a few here or there. But Marco Penge, since his suspension, I think has been pretty dang good, right? Came out hot out of the gates, 20th in Kenya, 3rd at the South African Open, 19th at the Joburg, and then 3 events middling, 49th at Porsche, miscut, and then last week at the Volvo China Open, ended up finishing T26, halfway point. He was in a strong position, 74 on Saturday, kind of did him in. Marco Penge hits the ball a mile. I'm not sure he's lost on the tee at one time distance in his DP World Tour career so far. Seems to just be coming into his own at a course now that really will play into his favor. I think, again, Stone angle of the sense of probably overachieved a little bit last week. I know T26 isn't the best, but, showed a lot of life into that. And then now we get him at an okay price at a course fit that should be great for what's been a good year, in my opinion. That got me enough to be excited at 50-1 for Marco Penge.
Yeah, I think a couple of really important things. One is how quickly he's just come back from suspension. Like we mentioned it in the first couple of events that he had. He was brilliant, and they weren't spike weeks. He's been consistent every week since, apart from the one missed cut, right? But and again, the second point is that, as you said, good finish on a course that probably doesn't suit. Same with Stone. We probably upgrade those kind of finishes. Yes, you'd want them to finish 8th or 10th. And be able to say, they would have won if it was a better course, whatever. But 26 is absolutely fine. He's playing well, and there's no reason not to like him, especially with the way he hits the ball. So, really intrigued to see what he does. I haven't, just because I looked at another guy in this range, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just, 14th at the halfway point. He's just been, and he showed a lot of life at some of the bigger ball tracks right away on the DP World Tour. When like Svensson was up in the mix, you saw those guys playing at a lot of similar courses very well. So I just think enough for there with the price. And we ended up going, I would say, quite bomber heavy with our card to really close here. We have gaps now from 50-1 all the way potentially to 175-1 here.
Yeah.
So I think we should talk through a few guys elsewise in the middle of the range. Golfer you're considering, who we were both on last week, who, you kind of gave me that push. Jacob Skov-Olsen, he's just good. He's just a really good golfer. Another top 10 last week. Now, again, I fear from a profile standpoint, this just might not be it for him, right? He seems to be somebody who benefits more from a shorter track. However, I do think there is the adage of really large fairways where everyone is hitting it actually does decrease the distance importance, because if it's long and tight, that advantage of yardage in the rough is just so much more important. If everyone's hitting from the fairway, if Skov-Olsen is as good from 215 yards with his iron as you are from 160, he can make it up. You know what I mean? So that's just a little bit difference when that 50 yards from the rough, it's just sometimes just unable to make up for. So, but tell us why kind of you're considering, if there's anything else that you're hitting on, just besides the fact that he's delivered.
Yeah, look, so when I was writing up the picks for today's golf yesterday, like he opened at 30-1. I literally had no interest, and then all of a sudden the 60-1 came out on Bet365, and it was, you look at it and you think, right, well, he's been 13th or better in the last 3 events, back-to-back top 8 finishes, top 25 in approach and tee to green last week. There was just he was just playing too well to ignore at the 61 price. He's now dropping down into kind of 40. I think you then have a decision to make, and my decision would be to just skip it because I'm quite happy with kind of having Chikara and Stone at the top there and then going to the long shots. But the 60s one was enormous. So if you can kind of get 50-55, I think that's absolutely fine. I do, like you say, worry about the distance, hindering him slightly. But to your point, if everyone hits it and he is better, as you said, from 215 to 170, 180 even, go with it. So the evidence suggests that he's just a real gamer at this point. We should be keeping an eye on him. Yes, there's going to be more suitable golf courses, and we should probably come back to him then. But I think it's worth playing at a big price.
And it's really not like he is like a bunter off the tee, as we would say. Like he's 5 to 10 yards shorter than field average. He can't not move it. He has been positive in some events too. So I wouldn't overly worry about it. And he just could be a player. I think if I looked through some of the other golfers here, like I said, Kabori still kept playing well after last week when we were interested there and on. Taichi Ko did okay too. I thought he was good. I thought Molinari, there's just so many kind of in this range. The one golfer that I'm considering here as we wrap up, kind of maybe some looks here, I just have an infinity with these golfers who came off of other tours playing so well. And when they start to show a little life, it's I need to back them. I really feel like they are really good golfers and clearly profile that. So the one that is starting to kind of buck his head a little bit, I think, is Ming-Kyu Kim, right? He's getting close, 15th last week at the Volvo China, steady rounds, no rounds worse than a 70 for him. He was 8th in Qatar, which I thought was kind of interesting because I normally kind of think that is kind of more of a bomber's track too. 8th there. Even in his round that he got DQ'd, I don't really know what happened there. He shot 72 at the Hainan Open in the opening round, which I think had him in 30th. Did we ever get reasoning why he got DQ'd there? Did he start that next round?
So, but to your points as well, while you were saying, there's a couple of those guys in the range, I knew you'd bring up Kabori, and I was expecting you to bring up Ming-Kyu Kim as soon as you started saying about players on other tours. So kind of to see that we're on the same wavelength there is really interesting. I think Kabori is another one that could just overcome the distance. He is slightly shorter than Olsen, though, and might be really impacted. I can't see anything about Ming-Kyu Kim.
I guess he did start. He did start a second round. He was 9 over through 14 holes in that event. Had a 9 on the par 5 and probably just picked it up and maybe
maybe found a crazy one.
So that's not as good as maybe the profile of one round was there, but that was his DQ. But regardless, he definitely had the 1 week pop last week in China, was pretty intriguing to me. But again, he's also somebody who is quite a short hitter too. That has me fearful. However, when you again, we haven't got any probably real events of strokes gained data from him that you feel that confident with. If I go to the Open Championship from last year, where we have some legit stats, right? He was above the field average in driving distance gained off the tee pretty substantially that week. So I'm more trusting of what we saw there, from Ming-Kyu, because I know that data is legit, where he was really good off the tee for a couple of rounds. So I'm not sure, if he's worth adding, but he has definitely caught my interest here in the mid-range.
Yeah, the other one I thought about, and in the end just decided he doesn't win, and we've had enough chances to find out whether he can win or not, is Tapio Pulkkinen, right? He won on the Challenge Tour in 2017, but he's never really kicked on from there. And we know he can move it off the tee. We know he's played well in China. He was second in the Hainan Open in 2017 on the Challenge Tour. He played well last week at the Volvo, 7th there as well. So, repeatedly playing well in this part of the world and gives it a good hit off the tee. I think Pulkkinen's an interesting one, but in the end, I just felt like I'd rather take a shot on some bombers that realistically we think could actually win, and have shown that in recent years, far more recently than Pulkkinen.
Yeah, Totally. Other one, man. I might get on here. Did you take any look at Nicholas Lemke?
No, but I'm willing to hear the case.
Well, I saw Ben was on him, so
Yeah,
like it makes me do a double look into that. If you had to guess, Nicholas Lemke's year, like to me, like I wasn't even confident like we've seen him on the DP World Tour all that much, right? Like I know he graduated from the Challenge Tour last year,
yeah,
but if you look, he's not like a consistent like starter here. He's played 5 times in 2024-5, like this swing season. Worst finish is T37. He has a T10 and a T13. He was T22 last week in China. And if you look kind of at, again, like I think, 70, 71, 71, 68, a very steady week. We know he hits it a long way. Like he is definitely more distance driven than a lot of players kind of, or you'd even profile of his age, 40 years old, right? I mean, he doesn't, if you talk about doesn't win, right? Like Nicholas Lemke, like we have tried to will him to the victories since he's been on the DP World Tour. He has zero, right? You'd have to go back to 2017 for the last time he has won as a professional, which was 2 times that year on the Nordic Golf League. But a profile of distance for him, I think is very real, and somebody who can gain off the tee. Like it's been a sneaky good year for him, in my opinion.
yeah. I mean, that is all definitely true. He has the third place finishing guitar on his CV, sixth in Portugal on the DP World Tour. So, he's been around the lead and stuff like that. And as we keep sort of referencing, the tour's getting weaker, and actually these guys are probably, Lemke's obviously reinvented himself again later on in his career, and 40 years old. Really, it sounds awful, especially for fans of other sports, right? But there's probably another 10 years of him playing decent golf, right? Especially if someone that hits it so long, he can probably just scale that back a little bit as he gets slightly older and be absolutely fine. I just find it hard to back someone that's never won, not even on the Challenge Tour.
Right. I don't think I would end up siding with Min Kyu Kim just because I think
Yeah.
it's the upside of what I trust there. But he at least was worth a double look.
Sure.
We can go into I guess I've got 3 that are plus this range. So I'll just start with one and then pass it to you. Immediately, the first bet of my week for me was Bobby Bay. Like spelled Bai. So I mean, if you looked, I think they technically they list as Zheng Kai. I think on the European tour, Bobby Bay. He's kind of been a name. I got to give a shout out to Jude Deloy. Jude's the best, and Jude's long kind of had us on the Bobby Bay train where he really was playing. I mean, primarily, I think when he was his best. So we'd look back into, I don't know, I guess when he turned from professional back in 2019, he was a really good amateur. Like, and then all of a sudden you see him jump into winning immediately in China back in 2019, and then won his second start ever on the Challenge Tour in China that year. So it seemed like he was going to come on and like make some noise. Got some shots on the Corn Ferry Tour in 2021. I think he had a full status that year and just did really nothing with it outside of some one-off like T6 and a T13. And then we just haven't really heard from him, right? Like won again in China in 2022. 23 was terrible on the Asian Tour. 24 was better in limited starts. He played primarily on the China Tour. And then we get him here kind of out of the jump in 2025, plays one event on the Asian Tour, start off, misses a cut, finishes 6th in New Zealand when he was in the mix heading into the tournament pretty late. 63rd in Macau for him. But if I look at that event, I thought he popped a little. No, just steady Eddie. It was really New Zealand where he was steady all the way through 65, 64, 67, 68. And then last week, of course, right off the jump, 3rd after the first round, 8th going into the final round, shoots a 76 on Sunday to fall back to 26, which honestly is like perfect for me leading into this week. He is a bomber. He's one of the longest hitters to really probably come out of the PGA Tour of China. So I have a ton of confidence. 190 to 1, you get him best priced there. Like, he was an immediate rip once I knew the course fit for the week.
Yeah, it feels like someone that would probably be really worth looking at in the first round leader market, Sky. Like,
Totally,
you said
yes.
a lot, but just like can obviously go out low, fast out the gates last week. Good in New Zealand, as you said. Hasn't quite done it since he's been in the here on limited starts. He hasn't quite done it on the Corn Ferry Tour, as you mentioned, but it's all building blocks. And again, we're sort of saying about we shouldn't, write people off too quickly. I mean, he's 27, right? He's not even 20 years old, right? Yep. So a couple of those years have been interrupted by COVID and things like that. So again, I always give people it's like a 25, 26-year-old, right? More or less. So yeah, I get it. Completely understand. I think it's definitely a cool thing over everything else. And that's kind of what we're playing at this point of the odds board.
He was the one. Like, I was pretty intrigued last week because of what he showed in New Zealand, and then but like course fit did not make sense in my opinion for him last week. So to overachieve again, like, and then to have the Sunday fallback and then get some discounted odds, like, it's my recipe right there. Like, that is perfect for him, and I do like that. Maybe I might. I've been trying to add a 6th golfer here, but maybe I just go like the first round leader route for these long shots with them because I'm pretty intrigued by all three's kind of current form. But if you go next, another golfer who showed some life last week in China, finishing T15, if you want to go into your next one.
Yeah, so Connor Purcell, Irish golfer who has been around for a little while. He's not, extremely young, but he's still, of a good age where he can improve. And he finally broke through last year, 2-time winner on the Challenge Tour. One of those was at the Hangzhou Open, which is obviously in China as well. 4-shot victory there, second win of the season at that point. And look, he's really struggled since he came on the DP World Tour this year. But I thought it was so noticeable that, he halts a run of 3 missed cuts and 4 in 6 events to finish 15th last week. Grew into the event, was 54th after round 1, climbs all the way up into 15th. And I think it's just really important to look at where he plays well. And this is the part of the world where he does it. He's already got a win here. He's played well in other events as well. The stats suggest he was 6th in T-screen and 12th in approach last week, which is really strong. So, yeah, I think considering he's, only made 3 of 6 cuts and the best finish was 15th by a long way whilst returning to China, I think that's really noteworthy. And he's got a 7th place finish on the DP World Tour already in his career, but I think he's now going to be going for a career best finish. So, Connor Purcell, just, we know he can win. He did it twice last year on the Challenge Tour, and I know we want to see people that have won on the DP World Tour. We've got that in Chikara. We've got that in Stone. Marco Peng is threatened, right? So, we've got those kind of profiles already. We're now looking at people that we think can win based on what they've done in recent years. So, I think he fits that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it at all. Like, in a golfer of profile that we've definitely been on historically when he's shown some pops, do not mind it. I'll go into my next one here before we have a joint pick to close out. Davis Bryant, 340 to 1. Davis Bryant was somebody that we were incredibly interested in after getting through qualifying school last year. Monday Q Info, Ryan French had a big profile on Davis Bryant being the number 1 player, in the United States, basically mini tours, ripping up everything last year here. And then he plays well in both of the qualifying schools on Corn Ferry as well as the DP World Tour, showing that the likes of that, because basically had 0 professional, he had 1 event last year in Asia where he made the cut, and then just had turned, from an amateur to a pro in 2023, where he had won the Southwestern AM 2 years in a row, was really kind of his big, kind of call to fame really for those couple of years. So I think for him, we finally got him on a tour with status. He comes out in Mauritius. I think I backed him that week, opened with a 69. I was like, okay, he's here. He's kind of arrived, and then has not shown anything. And then he was T42, miscut, and then T41 in Kenya, which now he does seem like a golfer who doesn't have a ton of distance. Like, this is the one I'm kind of okay, like, just because of what he's showing. After that T41 in Kenya, he goes 6th, 26th, 4th on the Challenge Tour. So to finally get like a little bit of a rhythm and some kind of good numbers for him, I think that gave me confidence that just let's back him, see what he can play at, and kind of get rolling with somebody who I think we have mega talented on.
Yeah, look, I think it's quite clear. Like when you have struggled for so much on the DPR tours to start with, then you go back to Challenge Tour, finish inside the top six in two of your three events there. I think that's quite clear that maybe he's not got to this level yet, and things, as you said, have just come quickly, right? Like the only evidence is him playing mini tour stuff, and as you say, he's very limited, professional start. So to go and kind of get that grounding on the Challenge Tour, and then all it takes is a bit of confidence, right? He's obviously talented enough to compete at this level, otherwise he wouldn't be able to get to the tour in the first place. So then you kind of, we've seen already early in the season, especially in South Africa, these people parlay these kind of good performances on the Challenge Tour onto the DP Tour starts, and that could be something he would do. He probably just needed to go and get those good starts at a lower tier first to have the confidence going into this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about him. Like, maybe I wish he would have gotten the spot start last week instead of this week from a true course to it, but I'm also not going to say no with the price, at least in regards to that form. And then joint selection for us here. I'll let you lead us in on Joel Moscatel.
Yeah, like he was honestly the first pick I made yesterday, and I was quite surprised by that because I think it's someone that you've talked about quite a lot, to start this season, and he's not really delivered right up until this point. But two-time winner last year on the Challenge Tour, like Purcell. There was quite a few players, wasn't there, going into that final Challenge Tour Grand Final who had the chance to make it 3 wins on the season. He was one of them, but he ranks 10th in driving distance on the DP World Tour this season. He averages just under 320 yards off the tee. And no one above him has played more than 27 rounds. So that'd be 10 less than what he would have played. I think he's played 37. So I think that's quite noteworthy that he's probably going to end up being probably top 5 in terms of distance by the end of the season. And we talk about overcoming course fits. He was 10th after 54 holes last week, shot 77 on Sunday. But I kind of get this impression with players of this ilk that get to the the DP World Tour at a fairly young age, that have got used to winning at the lower level. I feel like they're almost too excited to push, right? I mean, I know he's 27 years old, but he's still new to this level. And he might have just looked at it and gone, look, I'm 5 shots back. I'm just going to absolutely chase down Chikara and Lee, and it just went wrong for him. Again, I don't know that. I don't know what the mindset was. I wasn't watching him specifically. But it could also just be at a bad round, in which case it's just one round we're focusing on. He went 2 for 2 in May cuts in China last year, and he was actually 2 shots back of the Hainan Open after 36 holes, the one that Purcell won. So again, just going down that line of who's played well in the country recently, we haven't had a whole lot of Chinese events on the DP World Tour. Let's look on the Challenge Tour. Moscatel fits that mold. Certainly fits the course profile. Probably pound for pound one of the biggest hitters on the tour, and the fact that he was 10th after 54 holes last week suggests to me that he's going to rise to this occasion and go well for us at a big price.
Yeah, I mean, spot on. I think everything about that. I think again the perfect recipe of overachieving last week on a course that shouldn't have 10th in the last round. You get the price discount because of that Sunday performance, and it's just like, okay, like this is tailor-made to the way that you and I kind of approach this. And then to get the really good price with it, I think is awesome too. The other golfer who's playing primarily on that China tour, right, is that I was intrigued at. That I didn't pull the trigger again, but if you look at it, 17-year-old, I think freshly 17-year-old Yan Han Zhou last week finished T43. He opened with a 69. I think he was like inside the top 30, if not 20 after the first round. Last year on the China Tour, now I think he's been a professional, honestly, maybe since he was 15, or at least 2024. If you look at his 2024 last year, he won twice on the China Tour, both to close out the year, November and December, including he had on the year 1, 2, 3, 4 other top 5s on the China Tour. And then he got those spot starts as well. And the Challenge Tour came over and he missed the cut in one and he finished 5th in the other. And then if you look at kind of, again, just amateur career, he had, I believe, seven other wins, when he was a early teenager. Two of them also being on the China tour while he was 14 and 15 years old. Like, kids got crazy talent. Now, I don't know it from, again, it just really pains me when we don't get laser data, strokes gained, real data for all of the players in the field. It's caddy, submissions to get data. So we don't have anything from last week on the player. Despite getting a DP World Tour start, we only get, a third of the field sometimes, which is super frustrating because I'd love to know him as a player. But he is somebody that is absolutely worth mentioning based off of that profile and just 17 years old.
Yeah, and we see this all the time, right? For them to start at 15, you think, oh, they're only 17. Yeah, he's been doing it for, best part of 3 years, right? Like, he's ready to go. So, yeah, really exciting. Someone coming off that tour, and it'd be great to see what he does in this second effort. As we sort of said, like last week, it was a case of players not having a chance to play all season. They get this spot start out of nowhere, and they've got to kind of figure it out in 1 week. Now they get a chance to come back to back, and that's really important. So, yeah, really excited to see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking up a tweet from Mike Miller back in 2022. Our friend, he had, Zhao Yanhan. He had won first ever pro start for him, first ever start in a pro event back in 2022, and he was born in 2008. So you're looking at him winning as a 14-year-old, professionally in his first ever start. So the kid has insane talent. If I'm able to draw something up from any type of fit, potentially that could be the one. I mean, they've priced him, still have 240 to 1, So, like, I guess of ads, I've talked about Minkyu Kim, I've talked about Zhao here, I've talked about Lemke. Like, of ones that if I can find a little bit more, like, he would really probably be the one for me to look at. But I'll do a little bit more digging there. I think we're good to close out then, Tom. Are you all set?
Yeah, all good for me.
Okay. Perfect. So make sure we give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, the mix, available all across your podcast platforms. Feel really appreciated by everybody over at Mayo Media Network giving us support. NFL Draft Week this week, huge week for Pat. Coming off of Heritage Masters golf is really much in the headlines. Zurich Classic. Tom, are you back in any of the DP World Tour guys over in the Zurich this week?
I wanted to. There was obviously two that I was looking at. There's one that was looking at Svensson and Moller.
That's a sick team.
Mainly because, right, if you look at the scoring average and birdie average, they're both right up there. The one slight concern I have is they're basically the same golfer, and you always want kind of a bit of a complementary skill set. And then I think you've got to look at the Paul brothers now. Like with Yannick Paul suddenly finding form last week in China, it depends whether it comes too soon or whether the travel hurts him. But Jeremy's been playing some really solid stuff between the Corn Ferry and the kind of opposite field events on the PGA Tour that he can almost certainly kind of calm any nerves that Yannick might have trying to find a big week. So, yeah, tempted by those guys. I know that Cantor and Smith are playing together. From a pure ability standpoint, they should probably be shorter price than they are and maybe just overlooked a little bit. But I do think when you look at the past leaderboards here, you do find that kind of the seasoned PGA Tour players, even if they're kind of longer odds, and that seems to do so well. I've backed Higo again. I've backed Higo with Ryan Fox. Higo has played here twice. Last year he played with Fox and they finished fourth, but he also played with Brandon Grace and finished fourth as well. And both of those times he was coming into the event having missed a couple of Crowlers the week before. Now he's won it. It's a free hit. He's got a 2-year exemption on tour with his Corrales win. That can go one of two ways, right? He doesn't view this as important as he did before because he's kind of got his status locked up, or he just goes bombs away and goes really low because he's just freewheeling it. So really like Fox and Higo.
Yeah, I mean, the Cantor Smith team is just so intriguing from the sense of just absolute flushers, and I never know if there is an extra motivation factor for these guys as the thing is it's more closer to an alternate field event than it is like a normal PGA Tour event. So that factor is probably in play for more guys than a typical week.
Yeah.
But when you put guys like Smith and Cantor, who, I mean, Jordan Smith was the last man out. Cantor should get his card, but you never know. Aora and Del Rey got in. Like that. It's like a potential literal career changing week for those guys, where almost everybody else at least has a partner who probably has status.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like there are a bunch of players. The famous storyline was always Brooks trying to get Chase Koepka a PGA Tour card, right? Like that was always the thing. And like you say, even if there are teams that are weaker, they've kind of got a player that's got his status for the next couple of years. I wonder if that works in opposite for Cantor and Smith. The motivation is obviously huge, but like Cantor, as you said, is probably going to get his unless anything goes horribly wrong this season. Smith has been chasing it for a few years now and not quite got over the line. And whether it adds the pressure to Cantor, like, look, I've got to drag Smith over the line in case he doesn't quite get it again, is, you never know. You never quite know how it works, do you? You don't know the mentality of them both. They could just go and win it because that solves all their problems and they're really motivated. So, there's a multitude of ways looking at it. Aora and Del Rey, as you said, is an exciting one, if nothing else. I don't know. I have no idea what to expect from them. Manacero is playing with Cristobal del Solar, so maybe they'll shoot 58 on day one and then go backwards. But it's an interesting week actually for betting. I mean, I think the world and their wife are on Horschel and Hoge, as they should be. I am also part of that group. But like you say, it could be a life-changing event.
I said I sneaky like this event. I mean, if there was more match play involved in the PGA Tour, like that's what I would prefer over this. But it's kind of a fun event to mix in, especially after the last 2 weeks of heaviness.
I think is that how they try and kind of appease the match play people? It's just not good enough. Like you need a match play event, and this is the one thing that these tours do, right? It just slaps you in the face in terms of really obvious resolutions. Just get a match play event. If yes, the players might moan about it for a certain period of time. There must be a reason why they've got rid of the match play, but everyone universally loves it. Like, I don't know anyone that doesn't like match play golf in small doses, right? And that's all we're ever asking for. Even if you alternate it and say, look, we won't do it in Ryder Cup years or something. Like, there could be anything you do, right? But they just need to get one back on there. So I guess the other shout out would be to the Fitz brothers. Like Matt found some form again last week, and Alex is always playing pretty well. So it'd be interesting to see how they go.
I've been scouring the China Tour website and having zero luck on any driving distance stats on our 17-year-old champ. But okay, let's review our cards and we'll close this out here.
Yep. So for me, I've gone with Eugenio Lopez Chacara, 18-1, Brandon Stone at 30-1. I think Scott Olsen is worth a look at the 55-1. I don't know yet whether I'm going to keep him on there. Connor Purcell, 175-1, and Joel Moscatel, both of us are on at 320-1.
Awesome. Yep. Brandon Stone together, 30-1. Marco Penge, 50-1. Bobby Bay, 190. Joel Moscatel, 320. Davis Bryant, 340-1. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Tom at Tom Jacobs 93. Me, I'll be available at Skyhook DFS. Potentially some ads and or first round leader once we kind of round out some looks into this. But next week, DP World Tour is off. And then, again, this interim stop again schedule was a little bit odd as we move forward. I believe next one is over in Turkey, but not till May 8th. So just a 1 week gap. Again, it's just getting hard over there on the DP World Tour with this schedule, because then you go into a major and then you go into Belgium. So just an odd schedule that we have this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it was kind of like, we'll add where we can and get things in, and they've just not got the sponsors or whatever it's been. But weird year, but it gives us time to kind of get to know other players around different other tours, and then when they come on, that only helps us, right? So maybe it's a blessing in disguise in some weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Opportunity is well available. So hopefully we can find us another dual winner this week. Best of luck, Tom. Good luck, everybody, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks. Thanks.
Right.